At 2:13 on a frozen winter morning, Officer Evan Cole watched a black luxury SUV glide through the sleeping streets of Belhaven and decided the driver did not belong there. He had not seen the vehicle speeding. He had not seen it cross a lane or ignore a signal. The rear license plate was clearly visible beneath two small white lights. But none of that mattered to Cole. The moment he saw the expensive vehicle and the dark face behind the wheel, he reached for his phone and sent a message to a private group of young officers. He told them he had found a high-value target. Then he started his engine and followed. Belhaven looked almost unreal at that hour. Snow rested along the edges of wide roads lined with stone walls and bare trees. Large homes stood behind iron gates, their windows dark and silent. The closed stores in the town center were decorated with soft white lights left over from the holiday season. Nothing moved except the occasional gust of wind carrying loose snow across the pavement. Inside the SUV, Marcus Bennett drove with both hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. At 53, he had learned that calm was not simply a feeling, it was a discipline. He had spent most of his adult life inside courtrooms, where anger could destroy a case and one careless word could free a dangerous man. His voice rarely rose. His face rarely revealed what he was thinking. Even when witnesses broke down or defense attorneys tried to provoke him, Marcus remained steady. That quality had helped him become the regional head of the Federal Civil Rights Division. For more than 20 years, he had prosecuted hate crimes, corrupt officials, and officers who believed their badges placed them beyond the reach of the law. He knew how abuse began. It rarely announced itself with flashing lights and raised voices. It usually began with a small lie spoken by someone who expected never to be questioned. Marcus was returning from an emergency meeting at the federal building. A violent white supremacist organization had moved faster than investigators expected. Threats had been made against a protected witness, and several sealed arrest warrants had been prepared before midnight. In the locked case on the passenger side floor were confidential statements, surveillance records, and the names of people whose lives depended on secrecy. Marcus had considered leaving the case at the office. He had decided against it because the evidence needed to be delivered directly to a secure federal facility early that morning. The case was made of reinforced black metal and secured with 2 locks. It looked plain, but everything inside it was protected by federal law. Marcus glanced into his rearview mirror. A police cruiser had been behind him for several minutes. At first, he thought nothing of it. Belhaven had a small department, and officers often traveled the main road through town. But when Marcus turned left, the cruiser turned left. When he entered a quieter residential street, it followed him there as well. The distance between the vehicles remained almost perfectly even. Marcus checked his speed. He was below the limit. He looked at his dashboard. No warning lights. He checked his mirrors again. The cruiser moved closer. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest that came whenever ordinary life began to shift towards something dangerous. He did not panic. He began observing the road, the time, the nearest open business, the position of the cruiser, the reflection of its headlights against the snow. Behind him, Evan Cole leaned toward his windshield, studying the SUV as though it were evidence of a crime. He was 26 years old and had been a police officer for less than 18 months. He enjoyed the uniform more than the work. He enjoyed how people became careful when he entered a room, and how drivers lowered their voices when he approached their windows. His supervisors called him eager. Several citizens had used different words. 3 complaints had already been filed against him. Each came from a black driver who claimed Cole had extended a simple traffic stop without reason. One man said Cole made him sit beside the road for nearly an hour while searching his car. A woman said Cole questioned her about how she could afford her vehicle. Another driver claimed Cole threatened to arrest him after he asked why he had been stopped. Sergeant Daniel Price had reviewed all 3 complaints. Each time, he had accepted Cole's explanation. The drivers had seemed nervous. Their answers had been unclear. Cole had acted out of caution. No further action was necessary. Cole interpreted those decisions as permission. A few months earlier, he and several younger officers had created a private group chat. It began with jokes about night patrols. Then someone posted a photograph of a handcuffed black teenager beside an expensive sports car. Another officer assigned points to the stop. Soon they were keeping score. They called it the Midnight Trophy Club. A driver in an old vehicle was worth little. A minority driver in a luxury vehicle was worth more. Searching the vehicle earned extra points. Finding cash, jewelry, or anything that could be photographed earned even more. They competed quietly, certain no one outside the group would ever see the messages. Cole looked at Marcus's SUV and imagined the praise waiting for him. He activated his emergency lights. Red and blue color washed across the snow and filled Marcus's mirrors. Marcus immediately turned on his signal. To his right was a narrow roadside shoulder covered in ice. Farther ahead, a pharmacy stood at the corner of a shopping center. The store was open through the night, and its parking lot was bright beneath tall lamps. Marcus slowed carefully and continued toward it. Cole's expression hardened. He expected drivers to stop the instant he ordered them to stop. Marcus's decision to travel a short distance toward a safer area felt like a challenge. Cole pressed his siren, then drove closer until the front of his cruiser nearly touched the SUV's rear bumper. Marcus entered the pharmacy lot and stopped near the front entrance, where security cameras covered the parking spaces. He placed the vehicle in park, lowered his window a few inches, turned on the interior light, and rested both hands on the steering wheel. Through the pharmacy windows, a cashier looked up from behind the counter. A customer waiting for a prescription turned toward the flashing lights. Near the entrance, a security camera silently recorded the SUV, the cruiser, and the officer stepping into the cold. Cole opened his door and placed one hand on his weapon. He did not fully draw it, but he pulled it slightly from the holster as he approached. Marcus saw the movement in his side mirror. He kept his hands still. Cole stopped behind the driver's door rather than beside the window. "Put both hands outside the vehicle," he ordered. Marcus slowly extended his hands through the opening. "They are visible, officer. Why did you refuse to stop?" "I did not refuse. The shoulder was covered with ice, so I pulled into a lighted area where we would both be safer." "I told you to stop back there." "You activated your lights, and I responded immediately." Cole stepped closer. "License, registration, and insurance. My wallet is in my inside coat pocket. The registration is in the glove compartment. Which would you like me to reach for first?" The careful question irritated him. Cole wanted nervous movement. He wanted confusion that could be turned into suspicion. Marcus gave him neither. "Get your license." Marcus moved one hand slowly toward his coat. "Slow down," Cole snapped. Marcus stopped. "You instructed me to retrieve it. Do not tell me what I instructed you to do. I am trying to comply safely." Cole moved into view. His face was young, but the anger in his eyes was old and familiar. Marcus had seen it in courtroom recordings. He had heard it in the voices of officers explaining why a harmless question had suddenly become a threat. Marcus carefully removed his wallet and handed over his driver's license. Cole looked at the name and address. Marcus Bennett. Federal credentials remained in a separate holder inside the coat. Marcus had no reason to present them. He had committed no crime, and his professional position should not determine whether he received lawful treatment. Cole studied the license longer than necessary. "What are you doing in Belhaven? Driving home? From where? From work? What kind of work keeps you out this late?" Marcus looked at him calmly. "Before I answer more questions, may I ask why you stopped me?" Cole gave a thin smile. "Your rear plate lamp is out." Marcus glanced toward the mirror. He could see the light reflecting against the snow behind the SUV. "The lamp appears to be working. So now you're calling me a liar?" "I am saying I can see the light." Cole's jaw tightened. "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus did not move immediately. "Am I being cited for the lamp?" "I said get out." I will comply. I want it understood that I do not consent to a search of myself or my vehicle. Something changed in Cole's face. It was not uncertainty, it was satisfaction. Marcus had given him the resistance he wanted, even though the resistance existed only in Cole's mind. Out of the car, now. Marcus opened the door slowly and stepped into the cold. His long, dark coat shifted in the wind. He stood a few inches taller than Cole, though his posture remained relaxed and his hands stayed visible. Cole took a step backward and looked him over. Turn around. Marcus turned. Hands on the roof. Marcus placed his palms against the cold metal. Cole searched him with quick, rough movements. He pressed along Marcus's arms, waist, legs, and ankles. He removed the wallet from Marcus's hand and placed it on the hood of the cruiser. What exactly do you believe I have done? Marcus asked. Cole leaned closer. I smell marijuana. Marcus went still. The words were delivered too quickly. There had been no pause, no careful breath, no sign that Cole had detected anything. It sounded prepared. There is no marijuana in my vehicle, Marcus said. We'll find out. I do not use it, and you do not have permission to search the SUV. Cole turned him around. You don't decide what I can search. The Constitution does. The words were quiet, but they struck Cole with more force than a shout. Through the pharmacy window, the cashier moved closer. A second employee joined her. The customer near the prescription counter lifted a phone and began recording through the glass. Cole noticed them watching. He also noticed the way Marcus looked at him. There was no fear in the man's eyes, no pleading, no apology. Cole felt as though he were the one being examined. Get on the ground, he said. Marcus looked at the ice near his shoes. There is no reason for that. On the ground. I am not resisting you. Cole reached for the canister on his belt. Marcus understood what was about to happen a moment before it did. A burning cloud struck his eyes and face. The pain was instant. His vision disappeared beneath a wall of fire. He raised one arm by instinct, but Cole seized it and twisted it behind his back. Marcus was forced downward. His knee struck first, then his shoulder. His cheek touched the icy pavement. I am complying, he said, fighting to keep his voice controlled. I need water and medical attention. Cole pressed a knee between his shoulders. Stop resisting. I am not resisting. You pulled away. You sprayed me without cause. Cole grabbed Marcus's other wrist and forced both hands together. The cuffs closed with hard metallic clicks. He tightened them until Marcus felt the edges cut into his skin. Pain traveled through his hands and up his arms. Warm blood began to collect beneath one cuff. Cole leaned close to his ear. You should have stopped when I told you. Marcus could barely open his eyes. The pharmacy cameras recorded everything. For the first time, Cole hesitated. Only for a second. Then he pulled Marcus to his feet by the chain between the cuffs. Marcus stumbled, blinded, and struggling to breathe. Cole guided him toward the patrol car with one hand gripping the back of his coat. The pharmacy door opened. A middle-aged employee stepped outside, holding a bottle of water. Officer, that man needs help. Go back inside, Cole shouted. We saw what happened. You saw a suspect resist arrest. Return to the store. The employee did not move. The cameras saw it too. Cole pushed Marcus into the rear seat and slammed the door. Inside the cruiser, Marcus bent forward as far as the cuffs allowed. His eyes burned. His ribs hurt when he breathed. His hands had begun to grow numb. Through the divider, he watched Cole walk back toward the SUV. Marcus lifted his head. Do not search that vehicle, he called. There are protected federal materials inside. Cole stopped beside the driver's door. He turned and looked back at Marcus through the glass. The warning did not make him cautious. It made him curious. Cole opened the SUV. He searched the center console first, then the glove compartment. He removed insurance papers and scattered them across the passenger seat. He checked under the seats and inside the door pockets. Finding nothing only made him more determined. Then he saw the black case on the floor. Cole lifted it onto the passenger seat. It was heavier than he expected. 2 locks held it shut. He returned to the patrol car. "What's in the case?" Marcus stared through swollen eyes. "It contains protected government evidence. You are not authorized to touch it." Cole smiled without warmth. "Everybody has a story. You need to contact your supervisor. You're the one in handcuffs. That will not remain the most important fact of this night." Cole's smile faded. He went back to the SUV, removed a small tool from his belt, and forced the first lock. The second gave way moments later. The case opened. At first, Cole saw only folders and thick envelopes. Several pages carried official seals. Others were marked with warnings about unauthorized disclosure. He lifted one file and began turning through it carelessly. Names appeared beside photographs, addresses, statements from protected witnesses, details of planned arrests, information connected to people who had already threatened violence. Cole's breathing slowed. He placed the folder down and picked up another. A federal seal appeared at the top of the page. Beneath it were the words, "Civil Rights Division." A credential holder rested inside a side compartment. Cole opened it. Marcus Bennett's photograph stared back at him. Below the photograph was his full title: Regional Chief, United States Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. Cole read it twice. The cold suddenly felt sharper. He looked toward the patrol car, where Marcus sat, blinded, injured, and bleeding from both wrists. Then Cole looked at the open case and understood that the problem was no longer an unlawful traffic stop. He had broken into protected federal evidence connected to a violent organization. He had handled witness information with bare hands. He had exposed sealed warrants in an open parking lot. His phone vibrated. A message appeared in the Midnight Trophy Club chat. One of the officers wanted a picture of the target. Cole quickly locked the screen. He returned to his cruiser, closed the driver's door, and switched his radio to a private channel. "Sergeant Price," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady, "I need you at the Belhaven Pharmacy." A sleepy voice answered. "What happened?" Cole looked through the divider at Marcus. "I made a stop." "What kind of stop?" Cole swallowed. "There may be a problem with the driver's identity." Silence followed. "What identity?" Cole lowered his voice. "Federal." Another pause. "How federal?" Cole looked again at the credential in his hand. "The Justice Department." Sergeant Daniel Price arrived less than 10 minutes later. His vehicle entered the lot without lights or siren. He parked beside the cruiser and stepped into the cold wearing an open uniform coat over a wrinkled shirt. He took in the scene slowly. The open SUV, the broken evidence case, the scattered files, the pharmacy employees watching from behind the windows, Marcus Bennett sitting handcuffed in the rear of the patrol vehicle. Then Cole handed him the federal credential. Price's face changed. "What did you do?" he whispered. Cole began explaining. The defective light, the delayed stop, the smell of marijuana, the resistance. Each excuse came faster than the one before it. Price looked toward the rear of the SUV. Both plate lamps were shining clearly. He walked to the open evidence case and read the warnings on the folders. His hands remained at his sides. He knew better than to touch anything. "You opened this?" Cole nodded. "Did you read it?" "Only enough to identify him." "Did anyone photograph the documents?" "No." "Were you recording?" Cole glanced at his body camera. Price followed his eyes. "Is it on?" Cole did not answer. Price closed his eyes for a moment. He had spent years making complaints disappear with quiet meetings and careful language. He had protected young officers because he believed loyalty kept a department strong, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. He approached the patrol car and opened the rear door. Marcus slowly raised his head. His eyes were red and swollen. Blood had dried along his wrists. His breathing remained measured, though every breath caused pain. Mr. Bennett, Price began, forcing gentleness into his voice. I'm Sergeant Daniel Price. It appears there has been a serious misunderstanding. Marcus studied him through narrowed eyes. No, Marcus said softly. There has been a serious crime. Price glanced toward the pharmacy windows. We can remove the cuffs, get you cleaned up, and speak privately. Officer Cole is young. He made several poor decisions tonight. I believe we can resolve this without making the situation worse. Marcus leaned back against the hard seat. Sergeant, the situation became worse the moment your officer selected me before observing any violation. It became worse when he invented the smell of marijuana. It became worse when he sprayed me, injured me, and opened a locked federal evidence case after being warned not to touch it. Price lowered his voice. I understand you are upset. I am not upset. I am documenting. Those words left Price silent. Marcus looked toward the store. The pharmacy footage must be preserved. My vehicle must not be touched again. Emergency medical personnel must be called. Your dispatch records, Officer Cole's body camera recording, his phone, and every message he sent before this stop must also be secured. Cole's head snapped up. Marcus saw the reaction. He had not known about the group chat, not yet, but the fear on Cole's face told him something existed. Price noticed it too. For a long moment, no one spoke. Snow moved softly across the parking lot, passing through the red and blue reflections still turning over the pavement. Marcus lifted his bleeding wrists as far as the cuffs allowed. You have one opportunity to handle this lawfully, he said. What you choose to do next will determine whether you are a witness to Officer Cole's actions or a participant in them. Sergeant Price stared at the injured federal prosecutor in the back of the cruiser. Behind him stood a young officer whose confidence had vanished. In front of him waited an open case filled with secrets powerful men were willing to kill to protect. Price reached slowly for the handcuff key, but before he could use it, headlights appeared at the entrance to the pharmacy lot. A dark police command vehicle turned in from the road. Chief Raymond Holt had arrived. Chief Raymond Holt stepped out of the command vehicle and paused beneath the cold pharmacy lights. He was a broad man in his late 50s, with silver hair cut close to his head, and the tired expression of someone who had spent years keeping small problems from becoming public disasters. Sergeant Price had called him only minutes earlier, speaking in a low voice that made the situation sound like an unfortunate misunderstanding involving an inexperienced officer. The scene in front of him told a different story. Marcus Bennett was still sitting in the rear of the patrol vehicle, with his hands cuffed behind him. His eyes were red from pepper spray. Blood marked the skin beneath the metal restraints. His black SUV stood open nearby, and confidential federal documents were spread across the passenger seat beneath the falling snow. Several pharmacy employees watched from behind the glass. Chief Holt understood immediately that there would be witnesses. He walked toward Sergeant Price without acknowledging Marcus. Tell me exactly what happened. Price moved closer and lowered his voice. Cole stopped the vehicle over a plate light. The driver continued into the parking lot. There was an argument. Cole says he smelled marijuana and believed the driver was resisting. Holt looked at the rear of the SUV. Both license plate lights were shining. He turned to Cole. You smelled marijuana? Yes, Chief. Did you find any? Not yet. Then why is the vehicle open? Probable cause. Holt studied the young officer's face. Cole could not hold his gaze. Price handed the chief Marcus's federal credential. Holt opened it, read the title, and became very still. Regional Chief of the Civil Rights Division. The name was familiar. Marcus Bennett had appeared on television beside federal agents after several major police corruption cases. He had prosecuted officers, chiefs, and city officials. He had spent decades studying the exact kind of encounter now unfolding in front of Holt. The chief looked through the open cruiser door. Mr. Bennett, he began, I am Police Chief Raymond Holt. I understand that tonight's stop has become unnecessarily difficult. Marcus did not answer immediately. The hesitation unsettled Holt more than anger would have. Chief Holt, Marcus finally said, your officer fabricated a traffic violation, falsely claimed to smell marijuana, assaulted me, denied medical treatment, searched my vehicle without permission, and broke into protected federal evidence. Holt glanced at the witnesses inside the pharmacy. Officer Cole is young, he said carefully. Young officers sometimes make poor judgments during stressful encounters. This was not a stressful encounter until he created one. I am not defending every decision he made. You began defending him before asking whether I required medical treatment. Holt's expression tightened. Marcus continued in the same calm voice. I want an ambulance. I want the cuffs removed in front of the pharmacy cameras. I want my injuries photographed. I want Officer Cole separated from his phone, his body camera, and every electronic device he has used tonight. I also want my SUV treated as a federal crime scene. The chief looked toward Price. Remove the handcuffs. Cole stepped forward. Chief, he was resisting. Holt turned on him. Give Sergeant Price the key. Cole's hand shook as he removed it from his belt. Price leaned into the patrol car and unlocked the restraints. Marcus slowly brought his arms forward. The skin around both wrists was broken and swollen. He tried to flex his fingers, but two of them remained numb. The pharmacy employee who had offered water opened the door again. An ambulance is already coming, she called. We called after the officer refused. Holt looked toward the store, then back at Cole. How many people saw this? Cole said nothing. Marcus stepped carefully out of the cruiser. His knees were stiff from being forced onto the ice. He stood straight despite the pain in his ribs and the burning in his eyes. Chief, instruct your officers not to touch my vehicle. Holt attempted a softer tone. Mr. Bennett, perhaps we should speak somewhere private while we wait for the ambulance. We can take you inside the pharmacy and discuss how to resolve this. There is nothing private about what happened. I am trying to prevent further confusion. You are trying to prevent an official record. Holt's face hardened. That is a serious accusation. It is an observation based on your behavior. The ambulance entered the parking lot with its lights flashing. Two paramedics hurried toward Marcus carrying a medical bag. They began flushing his eyes, while another examined his wrists. As they worked, Marcus spoke to the pharmacy manager. Your security system recorded the parking lot. Yes, sir. There are 4 cameras outside and 2 facing the entrance. Do not allow anyone from this department to take or copy the footage without a written request and a complete record of who received it. Chief Holt stepped closer. This department has the right to collect evidence relating to an arrest. Marcus looked toward him while a paramedic wrapped gauze around his wrist. There was no lawful arrest. Your department is now part of the evidence. The pharmacy manager nodded nervously. The system uploads everything to an off-site server. Nothing can be erased from here. Cole's breathing changed. Marcus noticed. Officer Cole, he said, where is your phone? Cole touched the pocket of his uniform. Holt moved between them. Mr. Bennett, you do not have the authority to seize an officer's personal property at the scene. I have not attempted to seize it. I have instructed you to preserve it. If anything is deleted after this moment, you will have difficulty explaining why. Sergeant Price looked at Cole. Give me the phone. Cole stepped backward. It's personal. So were the messages you sent before the stop, Marcus said. Cole stared at him. That reaction was enough. Chief Holt saw it too. What messages? Nothing. Unlock your phone. I don't have to. Holt's eyes narrowed. Evan, did you contact another officer about this vehicle before the stop? Cole looked toward the open SUV, then toward the pharmacy windows. I might have sent a message. To whom? Some friends. What did it say? Cole did not answer. The silence became its own confession. Holt reached out. Give Price the phone. Cole reluctantly removed it from his pocket, but he kept his fingers wrapped around it. The screen lit up as another message arrived. The notification appeared before he could turn it away. The Midnight Trophy Club. Sergeant Price read the name. What is that? Just a joke. Marcus watched the three officers carefully. Price appeared confused. Holt looked disturbed. Cole looked terrified. Marcus reached toward the paramedic's phone. May I use that? The paramedic handed it to him. Marcus entered a number from memory. The call was answered almost immediately. This is Bennett, he said. I need the duty supervisor for the federal field office sent to the Belhaven pharmacy. There has been an unlawful arrest, use of force, and compromise of protected evidence connected to the Halcyon investigation. Local officers are present. Tell the responding team to treat the location as an active federal crime scene. Chief Holt's eyes widened at the name of the investigation. The Halcyon organization had appeared in national reports for months. Its members were suspected of armed attacks, threats against judges, and plans to murder witnesses. Even Holt understood that exposing sealed information from that case could place lives in danger. Marcus ended the call. No one leaves, he said. Holt gave a humorless laugh. You cannot order my officers to remain here. I am not ordering them. I am advising them that federal agents are on their way. Anyone who leaves after being informed that protected evidence was compromised may appear to be fleeing an investigation. Cole looked toward his cruiser. Price quietly moved between him and the driver's door. The first federal vehicles arrived less than 20 minutes later. Dark SUVs entered the lot in a silent line and stopped around the open police vehicles. Agents wearing plain coats stepped out and immediately separated the local officers. A woman named Special Agent Lena Brooks approached Marcus. She had worked with him for years and needed only one look at his face and wrists to understand that the situation was serious. Are you able to speak? Yes. Are you involved in the Halcyon prosecution? I supervised the emergency warrant review tonight. Because I am the victim, I am removing myself from any investigation connected to this incident. Brooks nodded. We will contact an independent prosecutor. Marcus pointed toward his SUV. Cole opened the locked case after I warned him that it contained protected federal material. He handled files relating to witnesses and planned arrests. Brooks's expression became sharp. She directed agents to secure the vehicle, photograph the documents, and record every item that had been moved. Another team entered the pharmacy to preserve the security footage. Cole's phone was placed in a signal-blocking evidence bag after a federal warrant was requested from an on-call judge. Chief Holt protested. You cannot simply seize a police officer's phone because of the name of a group chat. Brooks looked at him. We are not seizing it because of the name. We are preserving evidence after the officer announced that he had selected his target before claiming to observe a traffic violation. You do not know that. We will soon. Cole was taken to a separate federal vehicle and instructed not to speak with Price or Holt. The confidence that had guided him toward Marcus's SUV was gone. Without his phone, weapon, and fellow officers around him, he looked younger than 26. Before the ambulance took Marcus to the hospital, Agent Brooks approached him again. We will handle this. Marcus looked toward Cole. Handle all of it. Do not narrow this to what happened to me. Brooks followed his gaze. What do you think we will find? A young officer does not invent a game like that alone. He also does not become this comfortable unless someone repeatedly teaches him that there will be no consequences. At the hospital, doctors documented chemical burns around Marcus's eyes, bruising across his ribs, cuts around both wrists, and nerve damage caused by the handcuffs. His left hand remained partly numb. Nurses photographed every injury from several angles. Before dawn, tests found no alcohol or drugs in his system. A later search of the SUV found no trace of marijuana. Inspectors tested both rear plate lights. Each worked normally. At nearly the same hour, Officer Cole sat in a small interview room at the federal field office. He continued insisting that the stop had begun because of a defective lamp. He claimed Marcus delayed pulling over and created a safety concern. He said the smell of marijuana gave him legal reason to search the SUV. Then investigators showed him the pharmacy footage. The video showed the rear lights working as Marcus entered the parking lot. It showed him signal immediately. It showed his hands outside the window. It showed Cole spraying him moments after Marcus calmly refused consent to a search. Cole changed his explanation. He claimed the situation had felt threatening. Investigators played audio from his own body camera. Marcus's voice remained controlled throughout the encounter. Cole's voice became louder and more aggressive each time Marcus asked a legal question. Then, they displayed the messages recovered from his phone. Cole had written about the SUV before activating his emergency lights. High-value target, entering Belhaven. Another officer had replied by asking whether the driver was black. Cole answered that he was. A third officer told him that a search would earn double points. Cole sent one final message before beginning the stop. Midnight trophy secured. The rest of the group chat was worse. There were photographs of frightened drivers standing beside their vehicles. There were racial insults and jokes about expensive cars. Officers compared the neighborhoods in which minority drivers were easiest to stop. Points were awarded for ordering people onto the ground, extending detentions, searching luxury vehicles, and finding cash. Some officers had posted photographs of confiscated driver's licenses. Others had shared private information taken from police databases. Cole's image of Marcus had never been uploaded. He had made his mistake before he had the chance. By sunrise, the investigation was no longer about one stop. Federal analysts reviewed traffic records for every member of the group. The numbers showed that the participating officers stopped black drivers at a rate far higher than other officers working the same hours and roads. Their searches rarely found illegal items, but the same officers continued receiving positive performance reviews. Earlier complaints began to surface. Several had been labeled misunderstandings by Sergeant Price. Others had been discouraged before citizens could file them. One driver had been told that making a false accusation against an officer could result in criminal charges. Another complaint disappeared from the electronic system 2 days after it was submitted. The deletion had been approved using Price's supervisory account. Price was questioned that afternoon. At first, he claimed he knew nothing about the Midnight Trophy Club. Investigators believed him. Then they asked why he repeatedly dismissed complaints against the same officers. Price said he wanted to protect young officers from unfair accusations. They showed him footage from earlier stops. He said the officers had acted within policy. They showed him traffic data. He said statistics could be misleading. Then they showed him a message Cole had sent after one complaint was dismissed. Price cleaned up another one. "We are untouchable." Sergeant Price stared at the screen for a long time. "I never told them that." "You did not have to," the investigator replied. "Your actions taught them." Chief Holt held a press conference before he understood how much evidence investigators had recovered. He stood behind a podium at Belhaven City Hall and described the incident as the poor judgment of a young officer. He praised the department for acting quickly. He promised transparency. He insisted that the conduct did not represent Belhaven policing. Reporters immediately asked why earlier complaints against Cole had been dismissed. Holt said he was not familiar with the details. They asked whether he knew about the Midnight Trophy Club. He said he had learned of it that morning. They asked why traffic statistics showing racial disparities had never been reviewed. Holt said no one had brought the information to his attention. That statement collapsed 2 days later when investigators found an email from a civilian analyst who had warned the chief about the numbers almost a year earlier. Holt had forwarded the email to Sergeant Price with a short response. "Do not create a problem where none exists." The city's effort to describe Cole as an isolated rookie could no longer survive. Marcus spent several days away from the office. He could not type normally because of the nerve damage in his wrist. Bright light continued to hurt his eyes. Sleep came in short periods, often interrupted by memories of Cole's knee pressing into his back. He was angry, but the anger was not new. What disturbed him most was how ordinary the encounter had felt to the officer. Cole had not behaved like a man committing a rare and shocking act. He had behaved like someone following a familiar routine. Marcus hired a civil rights attorney named Rebecca Sloan. She was known for quiet preparation and questions that left dishonest witnesses with nowhere to hide. Before filing the lawsuit, Marcus made one thing clear. This cannot become a story about a federal prosecutor receiving special treatment. Rebecca understood. The case is about what happened before they discovered your title, and about everyone they stopped who did not have one. The lawsuit named Cole, Price, Holt, and the city of Belhaven. It accused them of unlawful detention, excessive force, illegal search, falsification of records, failure to supervise, and a pattern of racially discriminatory policing. The city tried to settle quietly. Its first offer included financial compensation, a private apology, and a confidentiality agreement. Marcus rejected it. Its second offer was larger. He rejected that too. The third offer removed the confidentiality condition, but did not require structural reform. Marcus sent it back unsigned. Months later, Evan Cole sat across from Rebecca Sloan during his deposition. He wore a plain gray suit that did not fit well around his shoulders. His police certification had already been suspended, and criminal charges were being considered. Rebecca placed Cole's written report in front of him. You stated that Mr. Bennett's plate lamp was not functioning. That is what I observed. She displayed a still image from the pharmacy camera. Both lights were visible. Were both of these lights working? They appear to be. Did they become repaired between the stop and the moment this video was recorded? Cole shifted in his chair. No. Rebecca moved to the next claim. You stated that Mr. Bennett attempted to evade you. He did not stop immediately. She played the video showing Marcus activate his signal seconds after Cole's lights came on. How many seconds passed before he signaled? Cole looked toward his attorney. You may answer, the attorney said. 3 or 4. And how far did he travel before stopping? I don't remember. Less than a quarter of a mile. Yes. Into a bright parking lot with cameras and witnesses? Yes. She placed another document on the table. You also stated that you smelled marijuana. I did. No marijuana was found in the vehicle. That doesn't mean I didn't smell it. No marijuana was found on Mr. Bennett. None was found in his clothing. None appeared in blood testing. None appeared in air or surface samples taken from the SUV. Are you asking us to believe that a smell existed without any source? Cole's face reddened. I know what I smelled. Rebecca opened a folder containing the group chat messages. Before approaching the vehicle, you told other officers that you had found a high-value target. Cole stared at the table. What traffic violation had you observed when you sent that message? I don't recall the exact timing. The timing is recorded. Silence. Rebecca continued. You announced Mr. Bennett as a target before claiming his light was defective. Why? It was a joke. Why was he valuable? Cole did not answer. Was it because he drove an expensive vehicle? Partly. Was it because he was black? No. Rebecca displayed another message in which Cole confirmed the driver's race and received double points for the proposed stop. Were you lying to the group then, or are you lying now? Cole's attorney objected, but the question remained in the room. Rebecca leaned forward. You described Mr. Bennett as physically imposing in your report. Before speaking to him, what did he do that made you afraid? He was a large man, alone at night. You were armed. Yes. You had pepper spray, a baton, a radio, a body camera, handcuffs, and a patrol vehicle. Yes. Mr. Bennett was seated with both hands visible. Yes. He obeyed your instructions? Not all of them. Which physical instruction did he refuse before you sprayed him? Cole searched for an answer. There was none. Rebecca waited. Finally, Cole's shoulders dropped. He questioned me. He questioned you. Yes. And that made him dangerous? Cole stared at Marcus, who sat silently beside Rebecca. No, Cole whispered. Why did you choose his vehicle? Cole's attorney placed a hand on his arm, but Cole seemed too tired to continue hiding. Because it was expensive. And the driver. Cole closed his eyes. He was black. The city requested settlement talks the following week. By then, prosecutors had charged Cole with falsifying records, unlawful deprivation of rights, obstruction, and improper access to protected federal material. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked. Sergeant Price was dismissed after admitting that he had discouraged complaints and attempted to persuade Marcus to leave without creating an official record. Chief Holt resigned when the email concerning racial traffic stop data became public. He insisted he had never supported discrimination, but the evidence showed that he had repeatedly chosen silence when the truth threatened the department's reputation. Several members of the Midnight Trophy Club lost their badges. Others faced criminal investigation for illegal searches, misuse of police databases, and false reporting. Belhaven agreed to a multi-million-dollar settlement with Marcus. The precise amount mattered less to him than the conditions attached to it. The police department was placed under a federal reform agreement. Body camera footage would upload automatically to an independent server. Officers could no longer disable cameras during public interactions without creating an immediate alert. Every use of force incident would be reviewed outside the officer's chain of command. Traffic stop data would be published by race, location, reason, search, and outcome. A civilian oversight board received the authority to demand records and testimony. Complaints could no longer be quietly discouraged at the front desk. Marcus directed much of his compensation into a legal fund for people who experienced racial profiling but lacked the money to challenge it. The fund hired investigators, preserved video, paid medical costs, and provided lawyers before evidence could disappear. Months after the stop, Marcus returned to federal court. The numbness in his hand had improved, though 2 fingers still tingled when the weather turned cold. Faint marks remained around his wrists. He no longer tried to hide them. The Halcyon hate crime case had survived the evidence breach. Investigators moved protected witnesses, replaced compromised warrants, and arrested several members of the organization before they could act. Marcus stood before a federal jury and delivered the opening statement. He did not mention Belhaven. He did not mention Cole. He focused on the evidence, the victims, and the law. His voice was calm and steady, carrying through the courtroom without effort. When the hearing ended, he returned to his office and found a letter waiting on his desk. It came from a delivery driver who had been stopped by a Midnight Trophy Club officer a year earlier. The man had been forced onto the pavement while his young daughter watched from the back seat. He had tried to complain, but Sergeant Price convinced him that no policy had been violated. The reopened investigation had cleared the false citation from his record. The legal fund had helped him file a claim. More important, someone had finally believed him. Marcus folded the letter and placed it inside his desk. That night, he left the courthouse after dark. Snow had begun falling over the city, softening the noise of traffic. His SUV waited beneath a street lamp. For a moment, Marcus stood beside it and remembered the pharmacy parking lot, the flashing lights, the ice against his face, the sound of the cuffs closing, the young officer who believed darkness could hide anything. Then he opened the door and climbed inside. Evan Cole's greatest mistake had not been arresting a senior federal prosecutor. It had not been opening an evidence case or discovering credentials that frightened his supervisors. His greatest mistake was believing that an unknown black motorist did not matter. He believed a man without a famous name could be stopped for no reason, injured for asking questions, and silenced with a false report. He believed a badge would make his version of the night more valuable than the truth. Marcus's position did not make the abuse wrong. It only gave him the resources to expose what had always been wrong. The pharmacy cameras captured what darkness was supposed to hide. The phone messages revealed the joke behind the badge. The complaints showed that the warning signs had existed for years, and once the truth was brought into the light, the entire system built to protect that behavior began to fall apart. Marcus started the engine and drove away from the courthouse. He still had cases to prosecute, witnesses to protect, and people without credentials who needed someone to stand beside them. The work was not finished. It had only become more personal.